Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Radio Works World. My name is Gill Bahram, the lifestyle leader, and I'm joined today by my lovely fellow host, Marina Nani. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Jill. I'm so happy to be here with you and have the first-hand information for myself. I was thinking, how unfair is this for me to learn all this first? And you know what? I'm ready to share, and I'm putting together a book about all our great conversations where you do all the talking anyway. So our listeners will be able to download the book soon. It will take us a couple of weeks, but we will make announcements when the book is ready. So they will be able to have it all in one amazing book. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Marina. That sounds exciting. Even I'm looking forward to reading it. Okay, so this is number 6. Now, last time we were here, we talked a little bit about homeostasis in the body. So what does the body actually need in order to function, basically? And we talked about the fact that there are 5 elements that's at the root of wellness. And so those imbalance of those 5 elements, therefore by definition, is at the root of illness, aging, and ultimately death. So what I'm going to concentrate on now is really the system of the body that's mostly responsible for homeostasis. And as you know, my passion is around heart health, and so it's actually the cardiovascular system. So it's a bit like a car. If your engine has to be in good condition for efficiency, for smooth running, for longevity of the vehicle, and that's why we spend money on servicing our cars to avoid breakdown and to get as much mileage out of them as we can. Now, it's my belief that we need to invest in a similar way to the maintenance to the engine of our cardiovascular system, in other words, the heart. Which we discussed last time, beats an estimated 3.5 million times in a lifetime. So what's clear here is that heart disease kills more men and women in the Western world than cancer, diabetes, respiratory disease, and accidents put together. And unfortunately, you can't tell the risk just from looking at somebody. You hear of people all the time who apparently look fit and healthy who die of a heart attack with no previous symptoms at all. So what we want to talk about is what are the factors, what are the things that actually influence and heighten the risk of us having that heart disease. And today I'm going to concentrate on one of those so-called risk factors, because there's a lot of confusion out there about what's good and what's bad. My job is really about education, and a lot of it is my opinion. You might find some of the things that I say a bit controversial, but they, as far as I'm concerned, this is the way that I live my life. This is the way that I help my clients and my family, and I truly believe in what I say. But I'm quite happy for you to comment below, to comment or to send me emails and to ask me more questions. So in terms of illness and disease, aging, poor diet, a lack of exercise, we talked about this, is what actually drives illness and disease in the Western world. Inadequate nutrients to support exercise recovery, for example. People that are very fit often don't have enough antioxidants in their system to aid the recovery from the free radical damage that they've produced when they're over-exercising or exercising a lot. Stress, disease, obesity all may lead to things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arteriosclerosis, and inflammation. And these are the 4 major risk factors of heart disease or stroke. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is about cholesterol, because there's a bit of confusion around cholesterol and whether it's good or bad. So this particular episode is called 6 Facts and Myths About Cholesterol and Statins. So are you ready, Marina?
I'm taking notes as we speak, as we listen. Yes, very exciting.
Okay, so as I say, you may find this a little bit controversial. Coming from a nursing background, I'm probably not going to be very popular with the medical profession, but I know that a lot of them do, in fact, agree with me secretly, because I think that, you know, we have a modern day epidemic going on here of heart disease. 1 in 2 people will suffer from heart disease in the Western world, or in fact all over the world globally, which is why my focus has gone so much to helping save 1 million lives a year. And, you know, I work with eminent people like herbalists, Stephen Horn, and Dr. Kimberly Ballas, who's a naturopathic doctor and PhD. And from some of the work and some of the research that I've done, I've just put together 6 facts and myths about statins particularly. So let's start, and cholesterol, let's start with myth number 1. So myth number 1 is having low cholesterol is good. Yeah, we're told, yeah, you have to have a low cholesterol, but actually there have been thousands of studies done on the dangers of having a cholesterol that is too low. Myth number 2. You may be stunned to learn that cholesterol is not the only or even the main culprit behind heart disease. There are probably 250 factors that will give you a higher risk, or put you in a higher risk of having heart disease. And cholesterol, having a high cholesterol reading, is only one of those. And I believe that the only reason we are so fixated on high cholesterol is the influence of the pharmaceutical industry and the profit margins created in prescribing statins for it as a disease. There. Myth number 3.
But you see, and I embrace this this truth, because it is your truth, it is my truth, and everybody I know. You just, people think, is it really? They have doubts, but guess what? Once you realize that any disbalance in your body is affecting you, is affecting the people you love, and the natural remedies available out there are ignored for commercial reasons, that makes me not angry. That makes me like knocking on this company's door and telling them to move to another planet, because too many people suffer. And you know, once they most of these chemicals, they create addiction. And so many times, so many people, they've been wrongly diagnosed, and they got into a habit or an addiction of taking drugs that they don't need anyway, and they don't get helped by, but they can't stop taking those drugs. So yes, number 3, you could say it again. I embrace it, and I'll repeat it till somebody is going to look into this and start thinking about people, not about the money they are making out of these victims, not about their bank balance. It's about people's lives. Over to you, Gill.
Yes, and I think there are 2 things going on here. One is that, you know, as you say, once you start taking a drug, all drugs have side effects, and therefore we get people who are what I call a subject to the polypharmacy. So one drug leads to another drug, which leads to another drug. I was with an acupuncturist friend of mine just at the weekend, and she had a lady come to her, and she was literally taking 16 different medications, and most of those were to counteract the effects of the other drugs that she had. And of course, the other thing that's going on is that, you know, I really truly believe in the National Health Service, but the trouble with the National Health Service is it's almost too easy for us to get a prescription. It's too easy for us to spend our £10. I don't even know how much it is. I can't remember the last time I took a drug, but it's too easy for us to just spend the £10 and take the drug. And a lot of people go to the doctors expecting that prescription to come away with, oh yeah, it's okay. You know, the doctor says I've got this, and therefore he's given me a prescription, so everything's going to be okay now. And, you know, of course, we respect our GPs, and I respect my GPs massively. But there has to be some sense that you are in control of your body. You are, you know, the leader of your health. You must decide what is best for you, and that not everything that your GP says is the or you don't have to do what they say. And you know, my work is spent with people, oh, you need to go on blood pressure medication, you need to have statins, and they said, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm going to find a natural way to do this. And that's a large part of what I do.
So what shocks me, so I'm very healthy, and I'm very grateful for my health, and I work on maintaining my health. I don't want to become a reference number with NHS. And actually, once I needed a cream, and it was so funny. They said, well, we can't give you anything. I said, I'll pay for it. They said, no, you've never been ill, so we have to you have to go through the process of taking your tests again. So in 20 years I've never been ill, so they think that's part of the, you know, the process. So apart from the bureaucratic system, I think what they could use that energy for is to create another department, another wing, if you want, for natural remedies. Because instead of telling me that I have to go and wait 5 hours to have my blood test or whatever it is that I have to do, to be able to have a prescription as simple as a hand cream, I think they could invest all that energy in funding into creating the natural remedy, and perhaps, you know, would be something there that they could recommend, and I don't need a prescription. I could just go and, you know, get some roots of some plant, some, you know, and heal myself. So I really don't I don't necessarily yes, I don't necessarily agree that the GP are in charge of your life, and you have to when you go there, the problem is solved. And I know people are desperate and they go there like the last resort, and they want their health back. But in truth, you have to decide for yourself how long you want to live, and how long that amazing asset you've been given at birth, your health, is going to last if you don't maintain it. But I think equally, NHS and any health system should have that option, an equal option for natural remedies. I don't know why it's called the black sheep of medicine, because it's so strange that people can't see the benefits, because like everything, you know, before smoking was banned in England, for example. I'll just give you this example because I think it's relevant. Everybody was talking about quitting smoking, and yes, it's bad for you, but nobody was stopping. Everybody was still smoking. And now, after they implemented, they made it the law, everybody stopped smoking, or almost everybody. I don't know. I can't see many people smoking anymore. So it's all about the system, creating a system that is fair. And I think right now is not fair, because the natural remedies are not an official path, and that needs addressing. I think that's at least stupid. If anything, it's making us ignorance, and there is no bigger price. Nothing is more expensive than ignorance. Over to you, Gill.
Yes, and the irony is that, of course, you know, the natural remedies, so many natural remedies are actually the precursor of the pharmaceuticals. For example, L-arginine, which is the precursor of the development of nitric oxide, which is Gill. Nitric oxide is the basis of statin drugs. It's blood pressure tablets. It's the basis of Viagra, because it's a vasodilator. So the pharmaceuticals took the Nobel Prize winning science back in 1998, and they used that to develop the pharmaceuticals that we're now familiar with. But it's ironic that if I was to approach L-arginine in this form, which is the natural form, it's just from food, and it's got sustained, it's got no side effects, then those GPs would not be allowed to prescribe it unless they were in a private practice. We are getting some GPs now who are in private practice. We're getting quite excited about Pro-arginine, which is the miracle, based on the miracle molecule. But the majority, if it's not passed by NICE, which is the regulatory body, you know, in America it's slightly different, because people pay for their healthcare, so they are prepared to pay for their natural or their natural remedies. Of course, here, I can't afford to buy those vitamins or minerals because, of course, it's have a pharmaceutical. It's an odd conundrum, really. But I think, my passion is really to see that we can create the sea change so that people have more confidence to be able to take control of their bodies.
And you see, you are talking about taking control. So I think you mean making the right decisions and open your mind.
Yeah,
because I had just before I retired, I was exhausted. For over 2 decades, I never had a holiday. I never had a weekend. So of course I was exhausted. Once I retired, my body perhaps reacted to the unknown time I was spending indoors, and I just collapsed in front of my house. So anyway, so I refused to go to the doctors, and my children were very, very they're very scared because I couldn't stand up. I couldn't, it was nothing wrong with me, but I could not leave my bed. So it was like, what's happening? And I refused to go to the hospital to waste their time. I knew I'm going to recover. I had no idea how. But a friend of mine, a client of mine, actually a Chinese lady, I called her, and they took me, because I couldn't walk to her clinic, and I left after an hour walking by myself. So when the time comes and you need help, just consider the options. There are options. So being aware that there are options, I think that alone gives you hope. Over to you, Gill.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, the more you understand about what the side effects are of the medications that you're taking, the more, that's an informed decision. If you still choose to take that medication, whether it's HRT or statins or whatever it is, that's fine. At least you've been informed and you know the facts. But this is one of the things that I'm covering today is what are the myths and what are the facts. So we got to myth number 2, and myth number 3 about cholesterol is that saturated fats have no impact on LDL levels. So those are the low density lipids that you have HDL and LDL. HDL are known as the good fats and LDL are known as the bad fats. But actually the liver doesn't use saturated fats to make cholesterol at all. So that's myth number 3. Look at the actual facts. Cholesterol belongs to a group of compounds called sterols, I should say, manufactured in the liver, but every cell is actually capable of making this substance. And it's by far the most abundant sterol in the human body. So cholesterol is used for all of these things. So it's there to emulsify and digest fats. In fact, this is cholesterol's most important function. It's there for hormone production. It's the basis of all the sex hormones such as progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, all those kinds of things, and cortisol too. And this is cholesterol's second most important function. And it's why the elderly and menopausal women's cholesterol levels should actually be higher, not lower. Cholesterol's a source of energy along with glucose in the body.
Oh, really?
It's there for,
wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
For the production.
No wonder I love it so much.
It's there for the cell membranes. It makes the skin watertight. It's something to do with making the corneum of the skin, basically, which would stop things that would otherwise get into the skin getting into the skin. But listen to this. It also plays a role in immune defense. It binds toxins. We talked about toxins in number 2. It reduces inflammation. We haven't even talked about inflammation yet. It protects the nerves and brain tissue from chemical damage. So yes. Cholesterol is important and necessary for our health.
Wow.
Now, what's your cholesterol reading? So we've got LDL, the low density lipoprotein, and high HDL, high density lipoprotein. So LDL has always been labeled as the bad cholesterol, but actually that's another myth because it's just as important as the HDL. It's the balance of the two that's really important. Myth number 5 is that cholesterol levels or cholesterol tests are accurate. actually, if the body's running at optimum health, you know, I talked about optimum health, and not experiencing disease, then the body at any time will adjust the percentage of LDL versus HDL. So it's moving constantly all the time. So when you get your cholesterol checked on a particular day, at this point in time, the body has adjusted the LDL and the HDL. But the next day, it could be a completely different reading, as the body will adjust the percentages for that day. So it's adjusting every minute to what the body actually requires. And here are some scary facts done by from a 3-year study done by the European Heart Journal in 1997. Low cholesterol was related to an increase in lung and other cancers, a higher risk of cardiac death. Now that's irony, isn't it? Erectile dysfunction and infertility, that's because of the effect on hormones partly. The loss of memory and mental focus, so we talked about essential fatty acids and how important they are. And a Swedish researcher also found that individuals with low cholesterol suffer from frequent and severe infections, and with the higher cholesterol, they actually had a lower mortality than the average population. So, not mincing her words, Dr. Kimberly Balance, who I love, says, if you're trying to lower your cholesterol, and I'm quoting here, you are increasing your risk of dying, plus feeding the cancer industry. Higher cholesterol can be protective against environmental toxins rather than harmful. In fact, there were no problems with cholesterol before we were exposed to environmental toxins. This research doesn't get reported as it will impair drug sales. So remember, when we talked about the beginning of this series, we talked about the effect of 21st toxicity. And of course, it's toxicity, inflammation that is killing us all, making us fat, sick and unhappy. You know, it's not just the focus on cholesterol and the statin drugs. Look, number 6, myth number 6, statin drugs are the answer. Well, using statin drugs to lower your risk of heart disease is false, as statin drugs are shutting down the production of cholesterol in the liver. It's more a case of not if they are doing damage to the liver, but how much. And actually, there's a greater risk of cardiovascular disease with abdominal fat and high cortisol levels than as they tend to go with high insulin. So that's much more at risk if you're that picture than if you've got a high cholesterol. And just a few things to say about statin drugs and about the effects of statins on your side effects. They are a known carcinogenic. They increase the risk of polyneuropathy, so that's adverse effects on the nervous system. They increase it by 14 times. Not everybody will have all of these symptoms. They lower antioxidants levels, so we need antioxidants to counteract free radicals. Free radical damage is what causes cancer in the body. Statins deplete CoQ10 and vitamin E, and they are the two of the biggest protectors of the heart and the circulatory system. So that is a crime within itself. Statins also can give you pain. They affect memory, lack of concentration, like weakness, fatigue, insomnia, again erectile dysfunction, and they will give people with diabetes much more difficulty in managing their diabetes in terms of raising their insulin levels. And so I would just say to you, today's message is that if you are on statins, or if you know people that are on statins, you know, just think about the alternatives. Have a look at what you can do to protect your heart that don't involve all of the polypharmacy, all of the side effects that this one supposedly super drug is doing for you. Over to you, Marina.
Wow. So our listeners, they experienced at some point an experience where they had, as you said before, their dashboard with all the red lights starting to go wild and tell them something. What would be the signals, the first signals they should pay attention to?
Well, the thing about heart disease is it's known as the silent killer. For example, I did a health check on a young lady. Now, this this testimonial appears on my website under What You're Saying, www.thelifestyleleader.co.uk, What You're Saying. If you go to that page, it talks about a lovely lady called Angela. And Angela has been working with me. She's a Pilates client, and she also has been working with me on her nutrition. She's very fit, 64-year-old. Looking from the outside, you would think that she's just got married. She's actually an identical twin, as part of the twin study at Great Ormond Street, has had lots and lots of tests. But I did a specific health check on her called a Tamar and arterial stiffness test. Just as a kind of extra, well, shall we just do this just to make sure that everything's okay? She knew she had a little bit of high blood pressure. But when I did her blood pressure, it was 200 over 100. Normal is 120 over 80. 200 over 100 is very, very concerning. It was that 4 times. It also tests the arterial stiffness. So how likely you are to have arteriosclerosis in your arteries. How much buildup of inflammation and plaque and cholesterol there are in your arteries. It runs from 1 to 8, and hers was 8 4 times. It tests her biological age. Her actual age was 64, and her biological age was 79. Now, we were equally as stunned. Both of us were, because she had no symptoms whatsoever. Some people with high blood pressure do get a few symptoms of feeling maybe a little bit lightheaded, or they can feel that their heartbeat is racing, or that they're not sleeping, or there are a variety of different symptoms. She had none. So I put her onto the Magic Miracle, the Pro RG9, and we tested her 2.5 weeks later to see if things were working and they were going in the right direction, because she didn't want to go onto high blood pressure tablets. We're just about to test her again, actually, this week. Her blood pressure was down to 148 over 87, so getting into normal range. But more importantly, her arterial stiffness, in other words, the plaque that was in her arteries, had gone from 8 to 2. And her biological age had reduced from 79 to 61, so actually 3 years younger. And this is the effect of the miracle molecule. This is how extraordinary it is by delivering a constant amount of nitric oxide into the body. Is we're not only preventing illness, but we're reversing it. So even if you have no symptoms, why wouldn't you take your car and get it serviced? Why wouldn't you make sure that it's topped up with water and oil, and that the radiator, the windscreen wipers, you do that with your car? Why wouldn't you do it with your body? So we use Pro RG9 as a prevention apart from anything else. And then you don't have to worry about it. You can just get on with your life, because you know that you're taking every step that you can to keep your engine running.
Wow. Wow. Until next time, from both of us, is goodbye.